and we have some time for a panel discussion. And for this discussion, in addition to the three speakers, I've invited Dr. Zia Hashim from the Department of Pulmonary Medicine also to join. I think Dr. Zia is there. All of the people in the panel discussion should unmute themselves and make their camera. They should be so that they can be seen. And we can start by, we'll go through the questions one by one. And the first question was from Dr. Amita Agarwal. And she has asked, this can go to Dr. Anshul. If you have a separate toilet, do you need to disinfect it daily? As it is not, do you need to disinfect it daily if it's a separate toilet?
If it's a separate toilet dedicated for that patient, then probably it depends. If the toilet should definitely be disinfected, but probably to avoid the exposure of healthcare worker who's taking care of, and the cleaning might be done by if the patient is not feeling that sick, or he is able, at least the cleaning should be done by him itself. But I personally feel you can avoid, maybe in 48 hours you can do it if it's a dedicated separate toilet. But anyway, the person who is taking care of the COVID positive patient has to clean it. At least I feel it, for the hygiene purpose, it should be kept clean. Either the patient can clean himself if he feels he's not feeling that sick, can be done by him, so he can maintain it himself also, himself or herself.
And
the one thing that if the toilet is being flushed, the lid should be closed, because it can generate a lot of aerosols. So it should be told to the patient that this is very important, that once they are flushing the toilet, then they should also close the lid of the toilet. Otherwise, it will generate a bioaerosol, and that will be contagious.
Okay,
Because
that
we
is
know
a
that
good point.
COVID-19
Yeah,
is a aerosol transmission is also there, sir.
Right. No, that is a good point. Dr. Kirti has asked, maybe again, maybe Dr. Zia can take this, that if everyone is infected in a family, do they still need to wear masks and live in separate rooms? Dr. Zia?
I don't think that if everybody is infected, then it is not they can live without mask, I think, because there is no risk of transmission already they are infected. So I don't think that they require a mask to all the infected person can stay together without a mask, I think.
In my opinion, if somebody is coughing vigorously and sneezing, the same etiquette as any common cold has to be taken care.
Can I add something, please?
Yes, go ahead. Short points, yeah.
You know it. Okay. The only thing I want to add is that if the whole family is COVID positive, that is fine if they are interacting in the house. If they are interacting with somebody else, they should immediately wear a mask.
Correct.
So
okay, that is a good.
Wait, Prakash.
So Dr. Amita has asked another question. Okay, she has just made a comment. Dr. Saisaran has said, is N95 recommended for caregiver? I think Dr. Anshul, you had mentioned this. N95 for caregiver, given the scarcity which is there already for N95 masks.
Actually, according to all the guidelines, because the N95 is the best one, if you are really wanting to, not wanting that the patient who is the caregiver getting the infected, the N95 mask is one of the best measures that which one should wear. But if because of financial constraints or the availability issues, he is not able to get that, then it's a separate story. Then you can go and advise for a surgical mask, triple layer surgical mask. But the first choice should be N95 only.
Can I speak, sir?
Actually, you can also use
Yes.
double mask. If
Yeah,
surgical
Use
mask is
double
being
mask, yeah.
As
Correct.
long as
yeah,
no
that
Okay.
hello.
Yes.
Dr.
Yes, go
Sai
ahead.
was telling something. Dr. Sai was telling something.
yes, sir. As long as there is
Go
no
ahead.
error procedure inside the house, N95 mask I think should be restricted to the healthcare workers in the intensive care unit. We are going to face scarcity of even gloves soon, sir. In KGMC, we are facing severe scarcity of so many factors. So N95, I don't think so should be recommended for a caregiver when social distancing and rest of the factors being followed at home isolation.
Right. I
Yeah,
think that is.
but
I think
I
that makes
feel
sense. That
out of
N95 should be used only in certain circumstances. Yeah. Dr. Amita has asked a question which I think some other people have also mentioned, that these are the guidelines for testing when the quarantine should end. And Anshul, would you like to make a comment on that? And maybe if somebody is also there from microbiology, after that they can make a comment.
So there are two components into it for discontinuing the home isolation. The first one is that from the onset of symptoms, that 10 days duration have passed. And the second is that the patient should be a period of afebrility for at least 3 days. So there are two separate points which you need to focus while advising anyone for discontinuing the home isolation without getting the testing done. So if the patient is totally asymptomatic throughout the illness, then you can, if the 10 days have passed from the report of COVID positive, you can simply ask him or her to discontinue the isolation. There is no point of getting the repeat testing done prior to joining. In cases in which the patient has passed 10 days but still having a low grade fever or fever, he's complaining of that, then probably you should restrain yourself, because a period of afebrility is also very important, because uniformly not in all 100% of cases 10 days benchmark is acceptable, because some have been found to disseminate disease even slightly till day 12, day 13. But if there is a period of afebrility along with 10 days have passed, then probably he's a candidate for discontinuing the home isolation.
I would like to add, the maximum time is 17 days. After 17 days, it is safe to presume that the patient is non-infectious, and whatever.
But the point is that if we extend it to 17 days, right now in the dearth of manpower crisis we are facing, so we need to have a policy. I feel that for at least for asymptomatic, there are many mild asymptomatic cases who didn't have only a single spike of fever. So why to get them unnecessarily tested? If they are afebrile for 3 days and 10 days have passed from their COVID positive report, they should join back. There is no point of doing that.
I would like to ask somebody from microbiology. Is anybody there? Dr. Ujjwala, Dr. Atul Garg? What is their opinion in this? Okay, I don't think anybody is there. I think there are many issues in this, and many. I think the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has changed its guidelines, like Anshul also said, and CDC guideline is similar to what the ministry is now recommending. So there is there should be some consideration for changing what we are doing currently at SGPGI. I think.
Can I say something with regard to that, Dr. Ishbhatia?
Yeah, Dr. Banani. Whenever you speak,
Yesterday,
just say your name, because I can't see anybody. There's just a little bit of spikes out there.
sorry.
In the, yeah.
This
Just say
is
out your name
Banani.
and then speak. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Banani. Yesterday, I had a word with the CMS on some other issue, and this came up about the 10 days quarantine. And he said that today an order is going to be issued, or he has probably already signed it yesterday. It was Dr. Gaurav Agarwal who's stepping in as the CMS. And in that, all the things that Anshul has already said, 10 days. And even if another family member becomes positive later on, they have to join back work. There is no need for a repeat RT-PCR at the end of the 10 days if they've been asymptomatic and 3 days without fever. So that is going to come into action from today, hopefully, or at least from Monday.
Okay, so we'll leave it there. Dr. Purvi has asked if low-grade fever persists beyond 2 weeks, how do we approach it? Um, Dr. Mohan, would you like to answer that?
Yes, sir. So then it needs a further workup that including the laboratories and the imaging has to be seen, and also to be exclude the secondary infections. So because it is not uncommon in the during this current COVID, people are having the fever and some symptoms of the cough and body ache till the 2 weeks, beyond that 2 weeks also, that called as a
Right.
post-COVID syndrome.
Dr. Zia, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, sir. Dr. Mohan has explained it very well that fever may persist. So we need to have some tests before declaring it, before assigning any cause to that. There may be some pneumonia, there may be some, it may be COVID related also, but it has to be seen by the tests.
So in that case, you have to test again for the RT-PCR?
No, RT-PCR testing, I don't think that is required, but in fact, chest X-ray and blood counts, etc. And we can also look for the markers. I think that will give a good idea, because RT-PCR after 15 days is usually not clinically significant.
Right. Okay. How many, Dr. Shalini Singh has asked, how many healthcare workers are coming positive at day 10? I think this one has been covered. Almost 70%, by the way, are coming positive. We calculated among our healthcare workers, almost 70% are positive at day 10. So that's a large number. Dr. Sai Saran has asked how to isolate a 5-year-old child. Rest of family members are negative. Dr. Anshul?
So in a 5-year-old child, I feel the child needs a mother, and probably the mother and child should be kept, because he or she cannot take care of himself. So the mother should wear a mask and take all the precautions which I discussed in my presentation, and we should presume that probably if all the measures are well taken care of, then probably the mother might not get infected. But we cannot segregate a child alone in a room.
So this is
Right.
Aditya
Good.
Kapoor. Can I just ask something related to the comment you made just now? Is it possible?
Regarding this child?
No. The previous
No,
thing which you said that
Aditya, we'll just finish the child, then you make your comment. I just wanted to
I'm
ask.
sorry. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask any other pediatrician in the. I know Banani is there, but if I think Dr. Kirti is also there, or Dr. Ujjal, or anyone else, any pediatrician, that do you have any comment on this? How to isolate a 5-year-old child if the rest of the family is negative?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Bharti.
Yeah, Bharti, go ahead.
Yeah, 5 year child is basically not very small child, and he's not breastfed most of the time. Of course, he needs a mother for feeding and some issues. For that time, that child can be kept with the mother with all the precautions, as Dr. Anshul said, with mask and everything. But if there is any one family member who is negative, for other times he can be kept with that family members. Not for all the times, because he's 5 years, so not very, very small. Thank you.
Okay. Yes,
May I come
yes,
in?
Banani, go ahead.
So I would like to differ. So I'm Kirti, Dr. Kirti.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Kitty, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. I would like to differ. A 5-year-old child keeping in isolation is not a good idea, and at least one caregiver, especially the mother. If you go by practical thing, a child will never leave his mother. So I think one caregiver, and in practical sense, even the RT-PCR is negative. I feel already the parents have been exposed. So there's no point in isolating a 5-year-old child, and he cannot monitor himself. So the way first victim is to isolate those who can monitor by themselves. So a child cannot be isolated alone.
Okay,
Of course
fine.
not isolated. It means if the mother is negative and child is positive and some other family is positive, then child should be kept to that positive member preferentially if he is there. Otherwise, mother is the best. That I agree.
Sir, can I speak, sir? Actually, we followed all the protocol. It is a real scenario in my house now. So my wife was negative, but again she became positive, and after that I became positive. So the entire family got exposed. It was only the child who was positive initially. We tried to follow the precautions, but it was very difficult to implement anything there.
Yeah, I can imagine that it's really difficult situation, and to give an exact advice might be really difficult. I think we should. I think you should talk to the other pediatricians. I think I will go back to Dr. Aditya Kapoor now.
Sir, but just a short question. Maybe I misheard or misinterpreted. You said that 70% of the healthcare workers are coming positive at 10 days. So then our policy, the current policy, which again I apologize if I misheard, that it's going to be changed that if the guy is asymptomatic, no testing at 10 days. If I heard it correctly. So is that correct? Because if 70% are positive at 10 days despite being asymptomatic, then what should be the current policy? Because we just want a clear message.
It is going to come out today. Dr. Gaurav Agarwal is bringing out the
Banani, whatever comes out, if the policy is that no testing at 10 days, then what I'm thinking is that if 70%, as sir say, come out positive, so that means they are positive and they are joining. So I'm just wanting some clarity on that.
I'm Amita Agarwal. Aditya, that virus at that time is a remnant of the virus. It is not infectious.
I get it, madam, I understand. Madam,
let's one at a time. Amita, go ahead.
So Anshul had shown that figure that after 10 days, the infectivity is very low. So if a person is asymptomatic or has been afebrile for 3 days, the chance of infectivity is very, very low. So you allow them to come back for work.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, let's leave it there. I would hope that can we go ahead because there are many other questions and no microbiology faculty is here to answer something more. So we'll just let it be right now. Lots of people are taking longer to test negative. So again, this is the same thing Punita is asking. Again, Dr. Sanjeev has asked, one of our department staff is positive after 28 days, and Dr. Sanjeev, so is a couple of our staff. And since they are positive, they are also reluctant to join. So it really, the order needs to be very clear, I think, so that if you really want these people to join, because now
in this I would just like to make one comment that you have to consider 2 points. The duration should be 10 days and the period of afebrility should be more than 72 hours. So that the period of afebrility should also be taken into account, though in this 28 days or 21 days isolation is not at all needed, because that is even with the patients who are having an ICU stay, which the most severe disease, are not infective at week 3rd. It has been documented by CDC as well as WHO now. The patients who are going on ventilator and recovering, they are also not infective on day 21. So we should be very clear in our mind, but definitely period of afebrility is also important.
We
right.
consider transferring
one question.
My question. Whether if a patient has already been in ICU for about 20 days and it is he is not negative, so is it that we can transfer that patient to non-COVID area?
I knew that question was coming.
Exactly.
Because we are
So,
having patients for about months, but
correct.
still the patients are not being taken by non-COVID.
So I
Then
think
there
all
are
these questions
also
have to be answered. I think we cannot just answer them right here. Let's finish
yes.
off the other questions which other people have asked. There are a couple of questions to Durga. Is it
May I ask?
development of acute respiratory illness with vitamin D which is reduced? Thus, is there any evidence after onset of acute respiratory illness? So, is it preventing the acute illness, or is it once the illness is there, also vitamin D has a role?
No, the trials that had shown were preventive of acute respiratory illness. And with respect to COVID-19, there is absolutely no evidence to support or to refute the role of vitamin D supplementation. Only that observation that patients with COVID-19 have a lower vitamin D level, which has also been documented in multiple different diseases. What to make of it, I really do not know.
So, Amita then has asked you another question. As all drugs have not shown any or they are equivocal in their effect, in mild COVID, should we reduce the pill burden in our institute for our patients?
I think that's for the policymakers to decide.
Okay. Yeah, I think some even the AIMS guidelines, if one this thing they say some of those drugs have less, they may have a role, they may not have a role, and they put few of the drugs which are being given into that category, and possibly they could be stopped. But again, the whatever was thought out for some reason. Kirti has asked, should inhaled budesonide be included in the institute protocol for mild COVID? Durga?
Sir, this is a preliminary evidence. One single study has supported the use. So I think we need to watch this space carefully. Further studies also support this, then possibly it could be.
Yes, that can be included because we often prescribe it because it is very easy to do it.
Right. Arpit has asked, should steroids, I think this can be taken by Dr. Mohan, and after that by Dr. Zia, he can make a comment. Should steroids be used in patients who have high inflammatory markers and high-grade fever after the 5th day of illness?
Yes.
Mohan?
Yes, sir. As I had explained in the slide, there are some experts' opinion and some evidences. Fever is high grade, continue after the 1 week, and inflammatory markers are high, can be considered steroids. Sure.
Zia, would you like to comment?
But if the fever is more than 102 degree at any point of time, then also we can consider adding steroid because that may be detrimental for the patient, and the duration of the fever is more than 5 days, and the fever is a high grade. Then these are the conditions which we can add, and if the inflammatory markers are equivocally high, like more than 5 times of the normal, then also we can add steroids.
Dr. Durga, final comment on steroids, when to start, especially because of fever, if you have fever?
I think Dr. Mohan and Dr. Zia have much more experience than me, and I would agree with that, whatever is
Okay.
said.
All right. I don't think there is any trial in fever though, in pyrexia, hyperpyrexia.
Sometimes CT
I
is
have one
very.
question.
Yes.
I have one question. Which steroid to be used, Dexona or Medrol? If in mild asymptomatic cases.
Okay, Dr. Durga, would you like to take that?
As the slide showed the recovery trial was for dexamethasone, but I don't see any reason why if there is an effect with dexamethasone, there should not be effect with other corticosteroid preparations as well.
Okay, Dr. Kirti has
Sir,
asked, is HRCT helpful in guiding when to start steroids? So would Dr. Mohan, would you like to take that?
Yes, sir. They are the, again, expert opinion, and there are some evidences in the cases where the severity is shown by the CT involvement. Then we can consider to give steroid.
Okay. Will you give the full dose of steroids, or sometimes people give half doses and things like that?
But it's a proven dose. It is 6 to 8 milligram dexamethasone or equivalent to other methylprednisolone could be considered. Even the meta-analysis has looked for that. There is not a significant change in the when you change other steroids, especially methylprednisolone and the dexamethasone.
Okay,
In
fine.
case of both.
Dr. Neha Nigam has asked, could you throw some light on the current status of remdesivir? Dr. Neha Nigam. So, will Dr. Durga, will you answer this in a short answer?
Remdesivir definitely not for patients in home isolation.
Right. And Dr. Punita Lal has asked if fever will come around day 7 to 10, should steroids be prescribed? So I think we've gone through this. What is the role, Dr. Saisaran has asked, what is the role of breathing exercises and other techniques which can release nitric oxide? Incentive spirometry and pranayam, etc., which can release nitric oxide. Dr. Zia, would you like to take that?
Yes, sir, they are helpful definitely. Breathing exercises are helpful, and they also increase the breathing capacity also. So deep breathing exercise should always be prescribed from the very beginning. So because
Okay.
if the patient goes to moderate or severe category, then also there are chances that his breathing breath holding capacity would be more. So that will be helpful, sir. That is right, sir.
Okay. So Dr. Chiranjit Gope has asked, do mild cases need baseline investigations and inflammatory markers? Any role for CT chest? Dr. Anshul, you want to take that question?
Yeah, so according to the policymakers, they have divided the mild cases into two categories: less than 45 without comorbidities and more than 45 with comorbidities. And what I have added, which I feel is good, which is a better strategy, is that in patients with more than 45 with comorbidities or less than 45 with comorbidities, you should get all the investigations done should be in preferably day 5, not at the baseline, because the changes take time to happen. And day 5 would be the best day to get it done if the patient is having continuous high grade fever, and because the CT changes also take time. So even if you are getting it on day 1, you won't be finding too many changes in the CT, and you will be falsely misguided by the CT report. So day 5 would be an appropriate time, but there is a catch in that if the patient is really sick on the with the onset, then you can get it done. You can keep a low threshold maybe in earlier course of the disease. But in less than 45 with no comorbidities, there is no need for CT and investigations at the baseline.
Okay, right. And Dr. Dheeraj Khetan has asked, any recommendation on the use of fluvoxamine in mild cases, and a comment on the role of oxygen concentrators. So the first part of the question, I think Dr. Durga can take, and the second part of the question, Dr. Mohan can take. Use of fluvoxamine.
I'm not aware of the evidence. I'll have to search. I really do not know.
Would anybody else, participants, like to make a comment? Dr. Zia, have you used fluvoxamine or know about it?
No, I don't. I haven't used it.
Anybody in the audience would like to make a comment on that? Okay, so we don't have so much information. And Dr. Mohan, would you like to comment on the role of oxygen concentrators?
Any oxygen supplementation for any mode, if there is a oxygen saturation is less than 94, that could be provided. Even
Right.
through the oxygen concentrator also.
Right. So they are not easy to get nowadays. I think they are out of the market. Dr. Manoj Jain has asked what is the threshold of temperature and the duration of fever to consider for aggressive treatment and hospitalization. Dr. Zia, would you like to answer?
The 102.
Threshold of temperature and duration of fever.
Yeah, what we consider as a significant more than 102 degree Fahrenheit and persisting for more than 5 days. That is the thing. That should be taken seriously, sir.
Dr. Bhatia.
Yes, go ahead, please.
It's Dr. Prabhat Tiwari again.
Yes, go ahead.
This is actually regarding the saturation of 94%.
Right.
Now, this is very important that we must understand very clearly that 94 cannot be the cutoff. The reason is the pulse oximeter is actually the finger has to be stationary, it has to be properly placed. And we have seen through the wellness committee and the department surveillance committees that at home they find a saturation of 80, 82, 85, and when they are advised to put it properly, then they achieve 90. So I think instead of just hanging on to one sign that is 94% oxygen saturation, we have to take a picture in whole, because it is our country, India. Lots of many people are there, and the resources are very limited. So please don't harp again and again on a cutoff of 94%. That is my request.
Right. That's a good point. Thank you for that. Dr. Shalini Singh has asked advice to be given post-discharge. Post-discharge means once the isolation is over, and how to monitor and what parameters to be looked into, or is this post-discharge from the hospital? Dr. Shalini Singh?
So it's post-discharge from the hospital. Once
Okay.
it's after the moderate or severe.
Right. So Dr. Zia, would you like to comment on that?
It depends on the severity of the disease and what are the comorbidities. For example, if the patient is diabetic or hypertensive, so he has to continue the medications. And the patient, if the patient was given a significant amount of steroid, then the steroid has to be tapered. And if there was patient is a high risk for developing deep vein thrombosis, then we will also prescribe some anticoagulant. It depends on the categories and the comorbidities and the risk factors. All things have to be considered. This has to be, I think, not for home isolation CGR. This question.
No, but still we can answer it. That what we have to do. I think it's a good question. Because they're going home and sometimes they are asked to stay at home, isolate for 1 more week, etc. So
but we
should monitor, I think, all their fever, temperature.
Yes, sir.
Latika has asked about proning at home. I think Dr. Mohan described that in some detail. And Dr. Saisaran has asked about inhaled glucocorticoid. Should they be recommended for every mild to moderate COVID? Would you like to take that, Durga, very quickly?
I think inhaled glucocorticoid, as Dr. Zia said, it could be considered. And proning definitely should be considered for all patients at home.
Right. Okay. Pulse oximeter not giving consistent reading, already Doctor described that. And what about persistent cough with normal SPO? Dr. Pradhan has asked, what about persistent cough with normal SpO2, as it may progress to moderate or severe respiratory difficulty? Dr. Mohan, would you like to take that, or Dr. Zia, would you like to take that? Persistent cough with normal SpO2.
So persistent cough
Sir.
with yes, the oxygen level is normal. Then obviously we
Yes.
can give symptomatic treatment for that. We can give a right
Yes.
steam inhalation and anti-allergic like Montelcir and something like that, and even cough syrup which is meant for dry cough, because the cough is usually dry in this. So if the saturation is normal, then obviously then it is not progressing to the moderate or severe.
Right. And doctor, so I think they can just be monitored. Can we
Yes, yes.
treat ICU dependent? Dr. Uday Pratap Singh has asked, can we treat ICU dependent COVID positive patient in normal ICU after viremia period, that is 11 days is over, as they will get better care in non-COVID ICU? I think this was already discussed, and there will have to be a change in the guideline if a different.
Yes.
Definitely, it's for some circumstances it's easier to treat patients in the normal ICU. Dr. Banani, you have any comment? Okay. Dr. Kirti has asked, in order to meet increased in bed demands, should patients be shifted or discharged to non-COVID area? Same thing, without requirement of RT-PCR. So really, this is a very big decision to be taken.
Sir, in
And
current,
Dr.
I am Dr. Mohan. In
Yes,
current
Mohan.
practice, we are taking after getting the 2 RT-PCR negative in any ICU COVID patient positive, then they have a 2
Yes.
negative RT-PCR negative, then we take them.
Right. We know that, but they're asking that can we just, after they are finished their infective period, let us say even 11 days or 2 weeks, can they be directly shifted to the non-COVID ICU?
No, sir. Because the lot of aerosol generation procedure in the sick patient being done, and lot of procedures including the suctioning many times if they are intubated, or
Yes.
if they may have a, of course, severe illness, coughing, and putting the central line, the exposure is more to the healthcare workers from these
Right.
patients.
Right. When CT cannot, Dr. Saisaran has asked, when CT cannot change the management, why should it be performed frequently? Clinical examination of the patient should be sufficient. Dr. Zia?
Sometimes the CT can help in guiding management, because if the score is more than like severe, the patient might need steroids. If Dr. Mohan has already told that if the CT score is more than, not in all cases, if the saturation is borderline, then only I recommend getting CT scans. Otherwise, in patient who is without comorbidities and less than 45 years of age, without any, so that in that case we don't recommend CT scan. But if the, like, if cough is very troublesome, if there is breathing difficulty and the saturation is normal, and in that case, in selected cases, we can ask for CT scan. But as a routine, it is not required for the mild case in home isolation.
Right.
We are not recommending.
Dr. Vanita Agarwal has asked, indications again, I think this HRCT is on everybody's mind, indications for doing HRCT that you already mentioned just now, Dr. Zia.
Yes.
Is it when SpO2 is less than 94%? Again, you've already mentioned that patient should have hypoxia, maybe around that time you should do it.
Yeah, if the like 6-minute walk test is positive, there is a drop of more than 3% saturation, and the patient is having uncontrolled diabetes and uncontrolled conditions, comorbidities, and the patient is very sick and because of other reasons, and the SpO2 is normal, then in that cases we can ask for, like we have to individualize, but we cannot order all mild cases to undergo CT scan, and that would be very troublesome to get, and it will not yield anything positive.
Okay, Upasana has asked that again this question about steroids, which one should be started. Dr. Durga said that the only one for which any trial is available is dexamethasone. Yes, Dr. Durga? Is there anything for which oral steroid should be started at home? Do you have any information?
I think he has left. Here's written a comment.
Okay.
He's in OP.
The dexamethasone is the best steroid to be started, and it is easily available and very low cost, and it has been shown to in the trials also. So we are using dexamethasone usually, but in only infected cases we are going for methylprednisolone, and that are clinically if there is something unusual about it. But as a routine, dexamethasone is good enough.